Hi, everybody. This is Mark Fisher at our channel, Our Scientology Stories, Peeling the Onion. And I want to welcome everybody to our video today. And I'm going to bring in my co-host right now, Janis Gillham Grady. Hi, Janis.
Hi, Mark, and hello, everybody. Thank you for coming to listen to more of our stories. Today, I'm going to be talking about more of the messengers. And this is going to start from 1972 and go forward.
Fabulous. And just before we get started, just for housekeeping's sake, we really appreciate everybody who's subscribed. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. We're at like 4,600, a little over 4,600. We're trying to get to 5,000 subscribers. So hit that subscribe button. It makes it easier for us to get the videos out to other people who aren't normal watchers. And also you'll get notified when we have a new video or something coming up. And then also, if you've got questions, go ahead and hit the questions in the chat. Please make sure you write the word question in front of it so it's easy for us to find. You can also super chat us or super sticker us as well. We appreciate any donations. And with that, we're going to answer questions after we do the slides, okay? So with that, Janis, are you ready to go?
I'm ready to roll.
Okay, so here we go. This is L. Ron Hubbard's Messengers, Part 4. Here's the first slide, Janis. Go ahead. You just tell me when you need me to change.
Okay. So actually, that's slide 2.
I know it's slide 2 because the first one's the title card. Anyway.
Oh, okay. Sorry, everyone. All right. So the ship has sailed to Lisbon and has been in dry dock in Lisbon. This is December 1972 that we're talking about. Hang on one sec. I've got to turn this distraction off. I thought it was off.
So I want to say hello to everybody that's in here right now. Goldie's in there as well. And we've got 43 people so far watching. But anyway, go ahead, Janis.
Okay, good. All right. So this is Lisbon. The ship is in dry dock in Lisbon, or it's now out of dry dock and it's in wet dock, going under repairs and being ready for us to return. However, we being LRH, L. Ron Hubbard, and the messengers and his aides were still in Tangier. And so while we're in Tangier, I mentioned before about us getting kicked out of the country and LRH having to flee real fast. So you can go to the next slide.
Okay.
So this here is Andre Tabayoyan and his wife, Mary. Mary was L. Ron Hubbard's cook at the time we were in Tangier. And Andre was his steward. So Andre, when it came up that LRH had to flee, Andre quickly packed his bag and drove LRH to Casablanca. The flight to Lisbon wasn't until the next morning. So Andre and LRH got a hotel room. And while Andre was in the bathroom getting himself ready for bed, when he came out, LRH had folded his bed back and got it all ready for Andre. Instead of Andre doing it for LRH, LRH did it for him, just as a fun little gesture. Anyway, so that morning, Mary Sue had given Andre a choice, said, you can fly to Lisbon with Hubbard or put him on the plane because you've got Mary back here in Tangier and you've got to think about that as well. So Andre returned to Tangier after he got LRH on the flight to Lisbon.
Okay.
We can go to the next one. When he was in Lisbon, Jim Dinkowski was at the ship and was called to the hotel to talk to Hubbard. And while there, it was decided he's named Jim Dinkowski, we just called him Jim Din. Jim Din was going to go with LRH to New York. And Paul Preston, who had also been at the ship, he had been a Green Beret of Special Forces, and he offered to go as well. So Jim Din, Paul Preston, and LRH in December of 1972 went to New York and leaving Lisbon, and we were all, the messengers and Mary Sue was still in Tangier. There's the ship. So we were in Tangier, and we took 1 week of shredding everything we could, packing the villa up, packing up TRC, which I'd gone over before in the last video. And then we went down to the docks rode our motorbikes down to the docks, and we ordered a ferry. And all of us did an overnight ferry from Tangier to Lisbon. When we arrived in Lisbon, I think it was probably about the 5th of December that we arrived. Jerry Armstrong was the ship's rep, and he helped get us through immigration and customs and arrange transport to get us back to the ship. So we arrived back at the Apollo in Lisbon, and Mary Sue moves to a house ashore because her rooms weren't renovated yet. So she's living ashore with her communicator, Nikki Freeman, and her steward, Vicky Berman, and Vixie, the dog. And the messengers, we all went back onto the ship, and we were then put on full-time training. We did the primary rundown, which was where we had to look up every word that LRH spoke in his student
Study tapes. Study tapes, yeah.
Yeah.
And when you say every word, you mean like every word, meaning A, the, it, right?
Yeah, so we had to learn every definition, or, read every definition, and then you listen to the study tapes after doing that. So at this time, we were also working on building up the messengers, but we still had the 7 key messengers and 2 trainees, which was Dee Dee, and we had Chris, but she didn't make it. Anyway, and then new messengers were coming in, and they were being put on the estate's project force to learn to wash clothes and iron them and smells and basic stuff before they were put on different messenger functions around the ship. Okay, next slide. That's my passport picture.
Who's that?
Passport picture at 16 years old. So that's what I looked like at this time when we'd just gotten back to Lisbon.
It looked like a mugshot is what I was going to say. Ready for the next one?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So during this time period of December 72 to September 73, LRH was gone. He was in New York with Jim and Paul. So Doreen Smith, married my brother. They took a leave of absence, their first leave of absence, and they went to LA and they got married at Celebrity Center. And that's Wally Burgess giving her away. And there's been talk before about the patchwork carpet at CC, where they didn't have money to buy carpet. So they went out to a dumpster by a carpet company, and they would get the carpet out of the dumpster and they patchworked it together. So that's just to show an example of the patchwork carpet at CC.
Great. And then just so people know, and then Wally Burgess was a long time Sea Org member and Scientologist, right? I remember many people might remember him as the LRH host at the Flag Land Base in the 70s and 80s, right?
Yeah, well, actually, Wally was from Australia, and my parents knew Wally in 1959, went during the Melbourne Congress. And we knew him at St. Hill, and then there he was on the ship when we got there. So he's been a long-term family friend. He has since passed away. Well, he would have been in his 80s when he passed away while still serving in the Sea Org several years ago.
And Doreen Smith, like you mentioned, and she was a messenger with you all, right? Yes,
and a lot of people know her as Doreen Gillham or Doe. We called her DOE, Doe.
Doe, okay.
And there's my brother and Doreen in my mother's office at Celebrity Center. She always had pictures of celebrities on the back wall.
Yeah, I spotted Bobby Lyons right above Doreen's head, the picture.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, and your brother Peter, he was on the ship Apollo too, correct?
Yes, he was on the Apollo. He came aboard when I did. He was 14 years old at the time, and he ended up, as soon as he hit 15, he got LRH's permission to transfer over to the Avon River to be with my mother, and he became an engineer on the Avon River, and then later transferred back to the Scotsman as an engineer. And at this time, he had gone into accounting.
Okay.
So here we are now, the Royal Scotsman is going under what we called CSP, Clean Ship Program. And this is where, during that time period, Hubbard was gone up until September. The whole ship was cleaned top to bottom. That meant all the vents where there was cow manure was found. There was dead rats found. I mean, it was like clean everything out for a white glove.
Yeah.
And during that time period, my sister and I managed to take a leave of absence. It was 1973, May in 73. We got approved to go because Hubbard wasn't aboard. He didn't need us. And we'd been on board since January 1968 till May 75 with no leave of absence, no money to even go anywhere, with both our parents in Los Angeles. And Mom happened to come aboard for some cleanup. And we hadn't, maybe this was the third time we'd seen her in 5 years. And that's when she said, I'm going to arrange with your father to pay to have you girls come out and visit me. So, and she did, and Dad paid for it. And we went and visited her in Los Angeles and him in Phoenix, because he had the Phoenix mission at the time. And then when we came back from that, I was put on a mission with Judy Spears and Diana Riesdorf, to get the Clean Ship program wrapped up so that the ship was ready for Hubbard's return.
Do you remember how old you were then?
Well, this was 73, so I would have been 16, 17, 16.
And you were in charge of making sure the ship got cleaned at 16, 17 years old.
Yeah. I just turned 17. Yeah.
Would you have your kids even be responsible for cleaning your house at 16 or 17?
Not like this.
Okay. All right, next picture.
All right, so this is where the ship is clean and the messengers are ready to go back on duty because Hubbard's coming back. And meanwhile, we've gotten a few new messengers in and trained, and I'll go over them as I come up with photos of them.
Okay, next one. Next, okay.
Okay, so that's me in the Commodore's Messenger uniform, and it's a black and white. Jim Dinkowski took this picture. It's a black and white picture, but the lanyard I'm wearing is gold because I'm an officer. I would have been a warrant officer at this time, and blue because I was part of Hubbard's personal office. Commodore staff wore blue lanyards.
Okay.
And here's a picture. So this is Lois Riesdorf. She'd gone from South Africa to Denmark, and then she came to the ship at 13 years old. And we trained her, and she became a messenger along with Jill Goodman. And this picture in the middle is Lois with the red hair. The closest girl to us, that's Jill, next to the Commodore, L. Ron Hubbard. And you can just see the tip of my hair and shirt on the other side.
Okay.
And there's Lois. This is an example of the uniform that we wore while we were in Europe. So this was a blue shirt, buttoned down with pants and a belt. This is the first time we'd had a standardized uniform. Before that, we all kind of just got blue T-shirts and pants, and with our own money, we kind of got matching clothes. So this is our first time in a uniform that was made by the Lisbon tailors for us.
I noticed she's got a cigarette in her right hand.
Yeah, we all were smoking at that time. A bad habit.
Yeah.
Okay, and so this is a picture that's been used a lot. This is Shelley Miscavige.
Right.
Yeah, Shelley Barnett at the time. She was not a messenger at this time. She was probably training.
She looks like she was a tech. Was she a tech page?
She's got a red lanyard on, so she was probably a tech page at that time as part of her messenger training to become a Commodore's messenger. Okay, you can go to the next one. All right, so we were in Madeira and we decided we were going to play basketball. We used to play on the dock, and to be honest, lot of us didn't know how to play basketball. I mean, Terry and I from Australia, we played netball as kids. But you got to remember, I left Australia when I was 9 years old. So here we are. We've put together a basketball team. And there's me in the very front in the middle with the Apollo on my shirt and the ball in my hands. And then if you go to the left of the picture with Apollo on her shirt, that's Terry, my sister. Directly behind her is Trudy. Trudy's another messenger, Trudy Venter, who we trained to be a messenger for when Hubbard returned. The girl in the middle, the tall one, I don't remember her name, but she wasn't a messenger. And then another girl over, that's Karen Campbell. She became a messenger. And then on the end is Annie Broker, Annie Tidman.
On the end in the back, right.
On the back, right. Then the girls in the white shirts with the stripe across it, they were from the Madeira Funchal High School basketball team. And every game we played against them, they creamed us. We lost so bad, it was embarrassing. And would go back to the ship, just losers, down and out, And then Hubbard would try and say, well, just put an X up there above the net and shoot for that X. And I'm like, I'd still miss. But anyway, people got involved trying to help us win. And it's funny, Dee Dee found a letter the other day that Clarice had written to her while Dee Dee was on leave. And Clarice is going, well, the girls lost another basketball game. Not a surprise.
Now, Madeira was an island, right?
Yeah, Madeira was a Portuguese island off in the Atlantic.
Okay.
And Funchal was the capital of Madeira.
Was it a big island or small or?
No, it was a small island.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, so we then, by the time we got to Tenerife, still on our losing streak, we fired Wendell Reynolds as our coach because we were also all at each other's throats. And we hired Kerry Gleason, hired for free. So Kerry Gleason became our coach, and here he is.
He's in the center with the long hair, right?
In the center with the long hair, yes. And starting from the right, going backwards, that's Karen Campbell. And then next to her, that looks like CB, Clarice Barnett. And then Terry is who's right across from Kerry. And then Annie next to Terry. And then I don't know who the person is behind Kerry, but I'm the one bending over with my hands on my knees. And I think that's Trudy, number 8, with her back to the camera. And this was in Tenerife. And even with the change of coach, we still lost every game.
And for people who don't know, Kerry Gleason eventually was famous in management. He became eventually the executive director international, and then he was removed in 1982 and, was out of the Sea Org after that. But he was a very successful manager in Scientology for some years.
And even after he left Scientology, he started a business coaching business and was very, very successful.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, and this is me on the forward well deck. I'm in uniform, and
of the Apollo, right?
The forward well deck of the Apollo. And this is I'm right next to the entrance to the tween decks. You go in there and down some stairs, and there's holds underneath there, and it's in the forward section of the ship.
Okay.
Well, that's not supposed to be there.
Okay.
Yes, that one. That's a different picture. Okay. All right. So now LRH became sick. And so while he was sick, what we did is we decided to put together a get well card. So we did pictures of all of the messengers looking angelic. So this was my angelic picture. And then we did another picture of each of us doing something goofy, and I couldn't find mine, so I had to use the one of Dee Dee.
Do you remember what your goofy picture was?
Something with a clapperboard.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you want me to go to the next one?
Yeah, go the one of Dee Dee. Yeah, and so there's Dee Dee just goofing off with some weights, trying to pretend she's got muscles. So that was the kind of gist of the get well card. Just kind of tell him, get well, we miss you. Then it was just to cheer him up.
Okay.
Him being Hubbard.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what I didn't include in here, because this is afterwards, but shortly after Hubbard came back from New York, he got in a major motorbike accident. I always thought it was in Madeira, but Kimmer thought it was in Tenerife. So I really not sure where it was, but it had a lot of windy roads, which is why I believe it was Madeira. And when he had that accident, he broke his shoulder, and he was, absolutely miserable. It was a nightmare to be around him. He couldn't lie down. So a red chair, he had storage of furniture. So a red chair was gotten from storage out of the hold and put in his room. And he had trouble sitting down. So we would hold on to one hand, his good hand, and lower him into the chair. And that was a lot of weight for, a little 17-year-old to lower this big man into a chair. And sometimes he'd get upset at different messengers because they dropped him into the chair. Normally, I think a person would usually just use their good hand and help lower themselves in. But we had to do it. And I cover this in my book. The chapter is called The Red Chair from Hell, because, yeah, that's my book. It's in book 2.
Book 2 is right here.
Book 2, right there. But I cover the story of putting him to sleep at nighttime in the red chair, and he would not fall asleep, or when you're sitting there and you fall asleep in your chair, your head will fall forward or your head will fall backwards. Well, that would wake him up. So we got a scarf and we tied rope to it, and we tied his head back in the chair. We had him tied into this thing, and his arm in a position on cotton wool, and it was like, okay. And then we'd all creep out because we'd gotten him asleep, and we'd try and creep out. Oh, and then one day, David Rousseau, I believe it was, kicked the tripod that we had set up to hold his arm, which then woke him up and caused a whole explosion. But there's many stories about that red chair and trying to get Hubbard to sleep in it. So read the book, and it's very interesting. Here is where Annie gets married to Charlie Rush. Charlie Rush was from Celebrity Center. He was a drummer.
So everybody's clear. This is Annie Broker. Her maiden name was Annie Tidman, and before that, she was married to Charlie. She got married to Charlie Rush right here.
Yes. So L. Ron Hubbard is giving Annie away as the bride to Charlie. And standing to the side on the right, that's Lieutenant Taylor. And on the left, saluting, is Alex Sibursky.
Okay.
And then here's the wedding party. In the dead center is Mary Sue to the left of Hubbard and Annie to the right. The right of Annie, going further right, is Charlie Rush, who she married. And then that looks like Sandy Ferreira. And I think then that's Dee Dee, Terry, Jill, and the girl closest to us, I believe, is Michelle.
On the right-hand side.
On the right-hand side. I think that's Shelley.
Shelley Miscavige.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then on the left, going back from Mary Sue, next to her is Tony Dunleavy. The young boy in the front is Kenny Kamplerman. He was a flute player of the Apollo Stars. And Craig Ferreira behind him, he was the guitar player. And then you see Billy Potter, you just see his face with the mustache. He was the sax player. And then Tom Rodriguez, who was the bongo player. And in front of him is Neil Safadi, who was also a sax player. And directly behind Neil, that looks like Mike Maurer. And
Okay. So L. Ron Hubbard acted as basically father of the bride and gave her away.
Correct. Yes. Okay. And here, this is in the VIP lounge at the back part of the ship where LRH, as the father of the bride, is giving a toast to Annie sitting down and Mary Sue next to him.
Okay.
And then here's the bridesmaids. The gentleman, that's Billy Potter. He was the sax player. Looking at the camera, smiling, that's Jill Goodman. She was a messenger. With the cigarette is Terry, my sister. And then Dee Dee, Diana Riesdorf. And then I really can't tell who the long-haired one is.
Okay.
Okay, and then here, Tashira was a musician on the ship. She was from Israel. And she had been a celebrity at CC, and she'd come to the ship to be a singer.
CC Celebrity Center.
At Celebrity Center. And she got married to John Hanson, who was the piano player for her band. So LRH and Mary Sue attended the wedding. And next to Mary Sue is Nikki Freeman, Mary Sue's communicator. And behind Mary Sue and Nikki, that's Annie. She was on watch. And then at the very back, cut off, is Rick Sheehy. He was the Commodore's or Hubbard's steward at that time. And this just shows you, it was a small community on the ship, and everyone gets involved and becomes a part of things.
Okay.
And then here we have the Commodore, L. Ron Hubbard, with in blue on the right. And next to him is another messenger in training, Joe Albert. Joe is actually still in good standing with the church, and she is known as one of the Facebook police, where if she sees someone's connected to an SP, she tells them, "You're connected to an SP," and gets them to disconnect on Facebook.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. Anyway, next to Joe, in the very middle of the photo, is Dan Albach, and Luton's behind him, and then Wayne Marple in the white shirt to the left, Neil Safadi in the
mustache,
with the mustache looking up at Hubbard, and then Billy Potter in the corner. And those are all, they all played the brass. Luton was trombone, Wayne did the trumpet, and Billy and Neil did saxophones.
Explain, Janis, because people may not remember or know. Why was there a band? What was the band? What was
well, what happened is one New Year's when we'd sailed into Madeira, the mayor of Funchal was he didn't have any musicians lined up to play for the New Year's event. So he asked if we had any musicians on board. And so some of the guys got together and said, yeah, we'll play. And they kind of worked some songs out and jammed out and figured, okay, this, and this. And Captain Bill was also a horn player, and he got involved, and they figured out some songs, and they went and performed, and everyone loved it and wanted them to come back and play some more. So that's when it was decided that, hey, this is a great public relations activity we can do, that people would want us to come into port and play for them. And that's when the Apollo Stars was set up, and then the Troubadours was set up, and, various different bands, Tashira, and then Paco came along, and James Hare would play flamenco, and Paco would flamenco dance. And it turned into a big traveling troop ship of troubadours.
Okay.
Here is the Commodore talking to Luton Taylor, the trombone player, and the boy in the blue shirt, that's David Rousseau. He was a messenger that we also got trained up during the time period while Hubbard was in New York.
Okay.
And then, Hubbard, when he gets into things, he starts doing it as a daily routine. So he would nearly every day, he was going down and working with the musicians, having them play different pieces, working out melodies, listening to their submissions of their tapes. And he got very, very involved with them. and he, to the point where he would get the Billboard Top 100s, and he'd get the records, and he'd play those records, and the messengers would put them on, and we got to listen to Elton John and all sorts of different songs, and we gave LRH a bird that we named Harmony. It was a turtle dove. We named her Harmony after the Elton John song, because that was on the top 100s at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was what he would listen to, and we would go in his office and put the records on and kind of dance behind his chair while he's working, so that he wouldn't notice what we were doing.
Okay.
And then this would have been probably in Tenerife when he was working on recording the Apollo Stars album. That's Hubbard on the left there, and Dee Diana Riesdorf in the middle. And then next to her is Bill Broderick, he was in LRH's audio-visual department at the time. He did all the recordings of the musicians. And the lady, I think that's Helena, she we picked up in Portugal. She married Paul Preston on the ship and sailed with us for a little bit. And then in the back is Luton Taylor.
Okay.
And then here, this is on the Atwell deck. The next band was the Troubadours. And on the left, you can see on the afro, that's Joe Albert. And sitting in the chair is the Commodore. And then the young girl next to him with the recorder, that's probably Doreen Doe. And then in front of them at the piano, behind the microphone, that's Des Popham. That was Claire Popham, Claire Maurer. She was a fellow messenger, one of the original messengers. That's her dad, who had been the LRH transportation in the earlier days. And then some people, old Sea Org members, would know Laurie Englehart.
She's the one singing in the middle, right?
She was the singer of the band, yes.
Yeah, I worked with her for many years, both at the Flag Land base and then later on when she came up to the international base at Gillham Hot Springs. We actually became very close friends, and she had her ups and downs, but she was dedicated, that's for sure.
Yeah, she actually was the one that pulled off all the Fort Harrison renovations, and then later was sent to New York and did the renovations there. She was in the States a lot as the commanding officer or doing some major project.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the drums, that is Norman Starkey.
Norman Starkey.
Yes. Norman had gotten busted as the captain and was sent to the RPF. And when they were trying to man up the musicians, a lot of them all came from the RPF because they didn't already have jobs. And Norman was on the RPF, and he'd been a drummer before he joined the Sea Org. So he went on as a drummer. And then in the shorts on the very right, that's Mike Maurer. And Mike Maurer is still a Scientologist living in Clearwater.
Now, and Norman at one point became the captain of the Apollo, is that right?
Yeah, well, that's why he went to the RPF from captain.
Okay. And then eventually, just so people know, he eventually worked hand in hand with David Miscavige at Author Services. And then he was the executor of L. Ron Hubbard's estate after L. Ron Hubbard died in 1986.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So this is the album cover, Power of Source, the Apollo Stars. This was all recorded in Tenerife. And that's just an album that was the album that was released.
And it's one god-awful album. I'm just stating my opinion. If you listen to that, it's really, really not very good, unfortunately.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. So now we have sailed across from Europe over to America. We were sailing to America. And the stories of what's behind that, I will cover in different different stories, channels, videos. But this shows when we arrived in the Caribbean, we all wore whites because it was so hot and humid. And this is a sample of the messenger uniform that people talk about, the sexy little tie tops and the hot pants. And that's the back of Lois Riesdorf.
And L. Ron Hubbard, of course.
L. Ron Hubbard. And I think they're talking to Captain Bill.
Okay.
And here's Lois and Joe Albert that I showed you earlier with the afro. They're in the white uniforms. And by this time, Mary Sue's corgi, Vixie, had passed away, and Hubbard had gotten her 2 Tibetan Terriers, and that was one of them.
Okay.
All right, so now it's November 1974, and we are in NASA. And I've just gotten back from mission, and I have to quickly run ashore and find a dress as a bridesmaid for my sister's wedding, Terry, who's on the right of this picture, with Shelley Barnett as her veil holder.
Shelley Miscavige.
Shelley Miscavige.
Yeah.
And then Hubbard, L. Ron Hubbard, is giving away the 2 brides for the dual wedding. And on the left is Trudy Venter, who is also a messenger. So it was 2 messengers getting married. And Trudy was getting married to Pat Broker, and Terry was getting married to Jerry Armstrong.
And was he giving them away?
And yes, Hubbard was giving them away as the father of the brides. Now, my sister had actually asked if my dad could come to the ship to give her away. And Hubbard was kind of shocked or surprised as to, why would you want your dad here? I can do it. So Dad didn't get to come to give her away, but L. Ron Hubbard gave her away.
Wow. Okay.
All right, so here's the bridesmaids, and I'm going to go from the front right and go to the back. Okay. So the front right with the dark curly hair is Annie Tidman, Annie Rush, Annie Broker. Behind her is my sister-in-law, Doreen Smith Gillham. In the blue, that's me. Behind me in the lighter pink is Jill Goodman. In the yellow is Dee Riesdorf. Behind her is Dee Dee's sister, Gail Irwin. Behind her is Clarice Barnett, Shelley's older sister. And in the very back is Suzette Hubbard.
Okay.
And that's the famous bridesmaid photograph that people have seen over the years and talked about.
I like all the different colors. Whose idea was that?
I don't know, because I was on mission and came back and I was like, I got to go get a dress.
They just said, go get blue, right?
Well, I was just trying to find out.
We don't care what it is as long as it's blue.
Right. It had to be a gown.
Okay.
In NASA. All right, so here's the wedding party, except for the father of the brides is not here. But I'm going to go from the right and go to the left. So very right is Clarice Barnett. The gentleman behind her is Tony Dunleavy.
With the beard.
With the beard. In front of him, many people will know her as Janet Whalen. It's Janice Thompson. And
you lost your light. Go ahead and take
I lost my light. I'll get it back up. Let me finish this. Okay. And then next to Janet is Pat Broker.
Yeah, for anybody who knows, that's Pat Broker. That's the guy who was with Annie Broker and, was taking care of Hubbard when he was on the run, from 1980 until he passed away in 86. And we're going to do a whole video on him and Annie and all that. But that's what he looked like back then in the 70s.
Right. So, and behind him, you can hardly see, is Alan Voss. He's got red hair, but I'll show, he's in another picture. And then there's Trudy next to Pat on the left. And then Jerry Armstrong in the very center of the photo. He's marrying my sister, Terry. In between Terry and Jerry is Stu Moreau. And then right behind Terry is Kimma Douglas. Kimma Dunleavy at that time. She was married to Tony, who's on the far right. And then next to Terry is Annie Doe. Behind Doe is Bob Young. And then me, of course, in the blue, and Dee Dee in the yellow. And then in the front row, squatting down in the pink is Shelley Barnett Miscavige. Lisa Catano, who was actually your sister-in-law, Mark.
That's right. Yeah, she was my ex-wife Julie's sister. Yeah, Lisa.
Yeah. And then Suzette Hubbard in the purplish with the red hair, and then Gail Irwin next to her on the bottom right.
Okay. And just so everybody knows, so a lot of you may know Jerry Armstrong I'm without going into tremendous detail. He's famous for having blown the Sea Org in the 1980s, and he had been in charge of L. Ron Hubbard's biography, and he took a bunch of his L. Ron Hubbard's diaries and documents and things like that, because he was the one who read through them and said, Hubbard's biography is a bunch of lies, and we need to straighten them out. And when he got told, well, we're not straightening them out, he was getting in trouble. And next thing you know, he was gone with everything. So he was one of the original whistleblowers on L. Ron Hubbard and Scientology.
Yes. And what I've heard is he lives in Canada because he can't, if he came to the US, the church would subpoena him and try and get him in jail, because they just do not like Jerry. But Jerry was like the original whistleblower.
Yeah.
Okay, here is the men of the wedding party. And I'll start from the right and I'll go over to the left. So the first one is Alan Voss. And he was Pat's best man. They were cabin mates on the ship. Next to, and we called him Vossy. And he actually later on went to DC when Hubbard was in DC to kind of get people to think Hubbard was in DC if they saw him rather than the real Hubbard. Because he was about the same size and had red hair.
Decoy.
Yeah, decoy. And then next to him is Alex Sibursky. Alex used to be the commanding officer of the U.S. and he did a lot of grand regging and got in trouble and was part of going to Boston as a men's. And that's a whole nother story in itself, along with David Light, who's next to Alex. People will remember David Light. He was like one of the top reggers at the Flag Service Org and later on the Free Winds at the Ship Org. And then next to David is Pat Broker, the groom. In the back is Bob Young, who was an officer on the ship. And then next to Bob is Jerry Armstrong. And then Charlie Rush. And then Stu Moreau. And in the back with the beard is Dave Murphy. He was the chief engineer.
Right.
And then the one on the left is my brother. And then in the front, the two in the front, the one with the curly hair on the left is Kenny Kampleman. He was the flute player in the Apollo Stars. And on the right is Mark Yeager as a 14-year-old boy. Many people know Mark Yeager in his later days as the commanding officer of the Commodore's Messenger Org International, or Inspector General Admin, or showing up at the airport to harass Marty and Mike Rinder.
Or also the one who Miscavige completely harassed and made live in the swamp at the int base after we left, and did everything he could to humiliate him and to keep him down.
Yes, yes.
Anyway, okay.
All right. So here is at the wedding reception. On the right is, you can see the face of Pat Broker. Next to him is Trudy, and then Gail. You can't really see them. In the back on the right by the pole, that's Joan Moreau. She was married to Stu, who was one of the groomsmen. And then there's Clarice Barnett sitting behind LRH. And then LRH looking at a record. And this was during the gift opening. Directly behind LRH is Joe Albert. We called her JoJo. And then there's Jill Goodman. In the brown dress with the red hair, that's Lois. And then in the blue dress is Barbara Dutton. She was another messenger in training. And then Marcy Henderson, who I think her name is... she's in Clearwater. I think she ran the children's school there or something. Marcy Sargent or something like that. And then, of course, there's Lisa Catano, your ex-sister-in-law.
Right.
And then my sister and Jerry. We'll show a better picture of them at, I think, next or a few down. So here's the wedding party.
You don't need to run through everybody
No,
again.
I'm not going to run through them all again. But yeah, there we all are again. But there's Shelley there in the pink dress standing up. And then here is Terry waving, Jerry behind her, Kimma. And then there's Mark Yeager. And
in
then
the back,
Tony,
right? With the
with the tux on and the bow tie and the red rose.
and a full head of hair.
Yeah, a full head of hair. Yeah, he lost that pretty young.
Yeah, he was prematurely bald. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, Tony Dunleavy at the end of the table and Laurel Watson next to him. And then, of course, there's the back of Hubbard. And
that's the same picture from before, but
the same picture, but showing the faces of the brides and the grooms.
Yeah.
And this is Hubbard giving a toast to the brides and grooms.
Okay.
And you can see all the crew around there. Everyone was invited to the wedding. It was, weddings were big events on the ship, and then we all partied afterwards.
Okay, I'm looking forward to this next picture.
All right. We are in Barbados. And that's me in the white bikini and Doreen, Doe, my sister-in-law. And then in the back is Murdoch McBride and Dee Dee. And in Barbados, we used to go to the beach and just hang out on the beach. And a funny story is we'd go to the beach and there were showers on the beach. And we'd shower, wash our hair and get ready, and then go hit the town afterwards without going back to the ship.
And what year, do you know about what year that was?
This would have been 75.
Okay.
Yeah. And one time I was washing my hair to get all the salt out of it, and they shut the water off. We didn't know the water shut off at 5 o'clock, and I got soap in my hair. And a local said, "Oh, why don't you come down to my house and just shower off there?" And he says, "It's just here." And so, okay, and I'm like, everyone, I'm going here, and no one would go with me. And I follow this guy through all these little winding streets, and I'm getting worried. I don't know my way back. I'm out here with this stranger. And then I go into his house, and I shower off, and he takes me back. But it was risky.
Hey, listen, somebody just asked, was Mike Rinder on the ship then when you guys were there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Mike was on the ship during this time period. He came on the ship, I think at the end of 73. And then in 74, he was in Madeira and was actually working in the shore office when we ended up leaving Madeira because of what we called the Rock Festival. And that's a whole nother story.
Yeah. Okay.
And then this is us just having fun, doing a pyramid. This is just to show we did have liberty, and we're having a good time when we had liberty. And then this would have been March 1975. This was Hubbard's birthday. And on the far right, that's Sandy Wilhare. And she is pregnant with Darius at this time.
Yeah.
And shortly before, she and Greg are sent to Washington, D.C.
That's where I met them. Yeah.
Yeah, as the LRH communicator and the keeper of tech. And then she gave birth to Darius. And then when we moved ashore to Clearwater, they replaced themselves and came back to Clearwater.
Right.
And then on the left, that's Diana Hubbard. And then Mary Sue coming in the door, and Doe is behind her. And the black lady back there, that's Alethea Taylor. She was Hubbard's secretary, and she transcribed all the lectures. She did a whole project transcribing that.
And she was married to Luton Taylor, right? The trombone player.
The trombone player, yes.
Yeah.
All right, so this here, then while we were in the Caribbean, LRH started doing photo shoots for different flyers for locals and for Scientology. And he actually got paid a lot of money for these photographs. It was all done behind the scenes of the C of S, Church of Scientology, paying him for these. But this is a picture of him with his arm around my sister Terry. And to the left is Rick Sheehy, who is the steward. The boy in the back, that's Matt Henderson. He was the brother of Marcy, who is in the other photograph, Marcy Sargent. And then in front of Matt is Doreen Doe. and her back to the camera. That could be Julie.
Okay.
And then here, another photo shoot. LRH with his arm on Annie's shoulder. My sister to the left, and Doreen is on the other side of the arm. And that left picture, that's either Shelley or Clarice, but it's one of the Barnett sisters.
Yeah. And of course, everybody knows Annie was the one who was with L. Ron Hubbard all the way until the day he died.
Yes. Yeah, that's Annie Broker.
Yeah.
And then this is Jill Goodman having a good laugh with LRH at another photo shoot. I believe this one was in Curacao.
Okay.
And then this is just between shoots, him sitting back, telling stories, people gathering around to listen to the stories. Kneeling down in front is Rick Sheehy, David Rousseau, and Jill Goodman with their hands under their chins. The left, semi back to us, is Bill Lazzaroni, and then Liz Osley, and then Warwick Alcock or Wick Alcock. And he is actually, I believe he is still there. And he is the only person left, I think, that knew LRH, and they use him to go out and do talks about LRH.
Okay.
Hang on, I got to get some water.
Okay. While she's doing that, put your questions in the chat. We'll get to them here shortly. There's only a few more photographs left, and then we'll get to your chats. If you have any questions about what Janis has been talking about, ask away. Super chat us. You can super sticker us, and also please subscribe to our channel. We have lots of historical stuff like this. These are photos. We're doing this to tell the story and let people know, what was happening in that time period. We're not in any way endorsing L. Ron Hubbard. We left Scientology, okay, and those are other videos. But this is just we're giving historical information here for people who we think will enjoy it. Anyway.
Yeah, because we've had some commenters basically tell us to get over it. Why are we talking about the past? But you know what? I've gotten some incredible emails from people so appreciative on us filling the gap of what went on behind the scenes. Because it fills the gap for them. And that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So I'll continue. So here's Rick Sheehy on the right, L. Ron Hubbard, Doreen facing away from the camera, Doe. And then there's Jill Goodman. And these are the messengers who are checking out the lighting for the camera. And then on the left side, that's Liz Osley.
Now, did the messengers specialize in cameras? Like, did they have to learn how to take care of his equipment and his cameras?
Yes. We all took care of his equipment, and he had one of the cabins was converted into these shelves and cupboards, and all the camera equipment was kept in there, and we had to sort it all out and know where everything was. And he had a lot of cameras. I mean, he had more than enough cameras of one camera per messenger plus. But and even up in his office, he'd have cameras laying on the red benches. And if he's out for a walk on deck and he sees a sunset and he wants to take the picture of a sailing boat, he'd ask us to go get his camera, and we'd have to run in and get his camera and bring it back out. And if the sun's setting fast, we're getting yelled at the whole time. We're running as fast as we can to get the camera. And then we get it out to him, and he either gets the shot or he doesn't. And if he doesn't, we get blamed because he didn't get the shot.
Okay.
And here is the front right is Jill. She's checking out the lighting. And there's Rick Sheehy, Hubbard, and Doe. But you can see on the uniforms, with the belly button showing, sexy little outfits is what they were. And Hubbard had actually told Terry, my sister, who was the CEO, the commanding officer at the time, had told her to work out a messenger uniform. And he'd wanted shorts and so forth. So she put this together and per what he'd instructed, and that's what you get.
And this is the mid 1970s. This is 1975, right?
Yes, in the Caribbean. We did not wear these in Europe.
Right. But I mean, just saying that was the style, you know, I grew up in that time period. I would have been in high school and girls, that's what they wore, you know, teenage girls.
That was the style in America, because I remember going to Arizona in 74 and hot pants was the thing.
And even you'll see in another picture too, you guys are wearing like platform shoes too.
Yeah, and platform shoes were the thing. Yep. And there's Jill carrying a whole bunch of cameras from one set to another.
Okay.
You can go on. And there's Terry and Doe carrying LRH's cameras.
And then let's see, they got platform shoes on.
Yeah, they got platform shoes on, and those are normally knee-high socks, but those look like they're just going halfway up the calves. And
okay, next one.
Yeah, and here is a break, and that's LRH just sitting there with the sunglasses and the hat on. That's Kathy Kurataki. She was in charge of the household unit at that time. And next to her is Liz Osley. Behind her on the right is Pat Broker, and then on the left is David Rousseau.
Okay.
And Pat was actually in the Commodore's public relations office at this time.
Okay.
And that's a photo of Doreen on the right, Terry on the left, and Liz in the middle.
Liz who?
Liz Osley.
Okay.
Liz would write the scripts and lay out all the photos, what they're to do, and she would arrange the actual shooting locations with the locals.
All right.
And that's just another photograph of LRH working on his shot with Doreen on the left and Jill on the right, in the middle.
Okay.
And there's LRH directing a still shot scene that was to be done for a Scientology flyer.
It's funny because they shot all these things. I remember the Volunteer Minister's Handbook came out then in the mid 70s with photographs like this, and they're comical when you look at them now because they're really cheesy. It's almost like they were like a comic strip, but in photograph form, where people will be like, ugh, with their tongue sticking out because they're dying, and he's actually hamming it up. It looks like he's
yeah. Fun. Yeah, it was all anti-psychiatry, these shots. I've got some other ones that I didn't include here that kind of show what you're talking about.
Okay, I already showed this picture.
This is about the messengers, so that's why I'm just concentrating on that.
Already showed. We'll go on the
yes.
next
All right, so here, the messengers are checking the lighting and setting this shot up before Hubbard comes along to shoot it. This is the back of DR, David Rousseau, and Jojo. And David's got the light meter. And in the back is Janet Whalen doing makeup of Trudy Broker and Pat Broker.
Pat Broker's in the loincloth, right?
Yeah, that's in the loincloth.
Okay. All right, next one.
And then after a day of shooting, or when the photos would come back from England developed, every now and again Hubbard would put on a whole show to the crew. So this is on the aft well deck, and in the middle you can see Hubbard standing there. It's a very bad photo, but it just gives you the idea of him there with the projector, messengers around him, household unit behind him, and then the various crews sitting around listening to him talk about the different photographs that he took.
Okay.
And this is a different angle of, messengers. That's Dee Dee with her back to the camera, setting up the projector. And I believe that is Shelley on the other side of her. And then, of course, LRH with the microphone clipped around his neck. And even crew go up the mast to get a better view, and people along the back of the poop deck looking down onto the well deck.
Okay.
And this was a photo taken for a recruitment of the Sea Org. LRH had done a whole brochure with Dave and Englehart and what was her name?
Chuck Murray's in there, and then there was a girl too, right? I'm gonna pipe up here, okay? Because this is 1975, 76 or whatever.
75.
And I joined the Sea Organization in 76. And one of the things that convinced me was that brochure. It looked like you guys were having the time of your life down in Florida. You know, when I was there, I was like, hey, they get time off, and look at this. They're hanging out at the beach and all that. Because I remember that. And Dave Englehart was like, she featured in the thing. And I think he's on his sailboat and all sorts of stuff, right?
Exactly. Well, this photo was not taken in Florida in Daytona.
No, but it was in the brochure. And I saw it later, was what I'm saying.
Yeah. And it was to show that we're all having a good time and we do get liberty. You know, it was false advertising. But we did. We had a good time, you know.
It worked. It worked.
Yeah,
got me.
we had good and bad times, but in this photo, that's the back of Jill Goodman taking the photo, and then that's Chuck Murray, and then me in the white, and Dee Dee next to me, Dave Englehart behind her, and I've forgotten her name. She was married to Dave Englehart. And then she married Bob Midoff and was actually with Bob reporting on.
Was that Sammy?
Sammy.
With
Sammy
the red hair,
Englehart.
Right? Sammy Englehart, yeah.
Sammy Midoff. She was actually with Bob reporting on David Mayo's ACC group.
Yeah.
They were sent in there as plants. And then my sister and my brother's in the white swimsuit. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So now we're coming to the end of the ship period, and I'm actually not there. I'm on mission at the Advanced Organization in Los Angeles with John Eastman. So we're on mission there. We'd left from the ship, and when we left, we had no idea we wouldn't be returning to the ship 5 weeks later. So this is Doreen Doe leaving the ship, and in the back on the right, he's back to the picture. That's Bob Visk. You can go to the next one. Yeah, there's Bob. He was transportation. He was helping get the cars, and he's going to get Doreen into the car for her to leave the ship.
So that's like the last time she left the Apollo?
Yeah, that's when she left the Apollo.
She looks like a movie star with her mink coat and everything.
That's how Doreen was. She always loved to glam it up.
I asked you earlier because I'd seen these photographs. Was Doreen really close to Hubbard? Like, was she one of his favorite messengers, or what was?
Yeah, she was a favorite. I mean, you know, everyone kind of had a different relationship with him, but I always thought he was lighter on Doreen than he was like on me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I don't know if that's because he expected more from me or what. But
how about the hierarchy? Were you like more of a boss? And like, I know Terry was commanding officer at one point. I mean, were you more of a senior person in the message?
Yeah, well, the senior messengers throughout this whole period was still Terry, Claire, Annie, and myself. We were the four senior messengers, and everyone else were on watch underneath us.
Okay.
And then here's Joe Albert, and in that wooden cage is Harmony, the turtle dove that we'd given LRH. We got clearance for her to go ashore and bring her into the U.S., and she was then taken care of by the messengers in Clearwater.
Okay.
And there's Annie and Charlie in the middle, and Charlie's got his arm around Clarice in the blue, and then Jill Goodman in the green jumpsuit, and her mom, Merle Goodman. Okay. And this was them saying their goodbye, because the Americans were staying on the ship unless they were going up to the relay office in New York, or like the messengers going to Daytona. All the Americans otherwise stayed on the ship, and the non-Americans who were sent to Daytona along with the tech team. So Charlie, being a musician, stayed on the ship.
Where was this at? Was this in the Bahamas, or where was it at?
No, yeah, this was in, I believe it was in NASA.
Okay. Okay. And that's the last of the photographs.
There we go.
They're great, Janis. It's a lot of people commenting about they love the historical nature of the photographs, and it brings back memories of those time periods and stuff.
Good.
Anyway, listen, everybody, we're going to get to questions right now, and we've got a few in there. If you've got any questions, get them in the chat right now. We've got about another 25, 30 minutes that we can answer questions. And if you want to super chat us, you can. If you want to super stick us, we appreciate the donations. It helps us put these things on. And that was a great show, Janis.
Good. I'm glad you liked it. I hope everybody else did too.
Okay, great. I've already started a bunch of questions. All right, Janis. So if at this point, if you'll look at the chat at this point and star anyway, and I'll pull them up one by one. Okay.
Yeah. And if people can put question and then put their question, that makes it so much easier.
Yeah. Okay, here's the first one here. Question, Janis, do you ever miss the ocean? Did you enjoy living on the ocean? Thank you, witness.
On and off, I enjoyed it. Yeah, I got used to it. That was my life. So yeah, I got used to it. And when I moved ashore, I was nervous about moving ashore because I was so, 8 years on a ship. And, but I was excited about moving ashore. And I didn't want to go cruising or anything. Finally, my husband got me to go cruising, and I love cruising now. Yeah. I do love the ocean and going on a cruise, but instead of being a slave, I get to be served, and I do enjoy that.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, witness. Next question here. DNV 1983. Janis, I just finished watching your interview with Claire. It was great. Yes, it was great, Janis.
Good. I'm glad you liked it. Thank you.
That was her interview she did about Where is Shelley.
Yeah. But, I want to bring up, some people have commented, because I say maybe Shelley is happy where she is. And there's people who say, how could you be happy when you don't have freedom of your own choice or whatever? I think it's a mindset. And I'm going to go into that in another interview of what it is like to leave and where your mind is at, or when you're in trouble and you're under God, and what you go through mentally, and you find happiness, though it's not the level of happiness you want. But anyway, I'll go into that so that there's a better understanding on that.
Yeah, and you weren't trying to be negative towards what, is going on with her. It was just another point of view of what possibly could be going on.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. Next question. Melanie Johnson, as the captain of the ship, did LRH officiate weddings?
No, I don't remember anyone having him officiate weddings. He was usually just the Commodore, and Norman Starkey or Captain Bill were the captains, and they did the weddings. But during the short period, there was a short period where Hubbard covered captain, but he didn't. I don't remember him officiating weddings then.
Well, plus, weren't some of the auditors, weren't they ministers, or no? There was.
Yeah, well, Tony Dunleavy also became a minister, and my mother did weddings on the ship as well. When she would come, the few times she came, people had her do their wedding.
Okay, thank you, Melanie. Next question. This is from Diane Jean Vallecillo. LRH was kicked out of so many countries. Oh my, not Scientology. Wasn't this a red flag with his public followers, or did they just not know?
Some did not know. Some, it was just a bunch of SPs just trying to stop us from saving the world. That's how you view it.
Yeah, and the way he portrayed it always was that the government was out to get him, and he was being pursued by the government. And I'm reading Barefaced Messiah again. I'm almost done with it, but throughout, in all the countries and stuff, they were being investigated in Australia, in England, in Rhodesia, which later became Zimbabwe. Everywhere he went, there was the government action after him. So it wasn't completely paranoia. There were things that were being done to keep him out, but he also took it to the extreme as well. Okay, next question. Apostate Alex is in the house. Hi, Apostate Alex. Hi, Mark and Janis. You guys are great, and I support you both all the way. Well, thank you so much, Apostate Alex.
And we're actually working with Alex to work out a schedule for us to be on his show as well.
Yeah, that would be great. And he actually has a question. Here it is, Apostate Action. Alex, question. Janis, do you have any stories about the Chalmers, Lycett, Calcioli, Walkley, Kloss, or Milton families from your time at St. Hill?
Yeah, you're probably talking about Margaret Chalmers. She came from Australia. I knew her there. She was at St. Hill, and then she was actually an auditor on the Free Winds. And when I was there as the commanding officer of the Free Winds, Margaret was my auditor. The other names, I don't recognize those. Those were probably at St. Hill after I left, because I left in January of '68.
Okay. Next question here. Swedish Lena. Question, who paid for all these wedding costs at the time, as you only got paid a pittance? Love from Melbourne, Janis. Loved your Where is Shelley.
Oh, thank you. The port captain's office usually put on the weddings. Everyone pitched in, like there's always flour and eggs and milk. So the galley made the cakes, and I've got a whole series of wedding photos, and that gave me an idea. I'll do a thing on weddings and show all the different varieties of weddings we had on the ship.
But how would they get like tuxedos? Would they rent them and dresses?
Yeah, we would all, like that blue dress. I went and paid for that myself out of my savings. A lot of the double wedding of the two messengers, that was put on by LRH's public relations crew.
Okay.
So he would have paid for some of that stuff, or they would have gotten it from the ship's financial planning.
Okay. Thank you so much for that question. And thank you from Melbourne, Australia. That's awesome. Justin Craig, a.k.a. LRH 2.0. Is Bob Young the same person as Robert Von Young?
No.
People.
No. Bob Young was English, and he actually joined the Sea Org knowing nothing really about Scientology, and he became a captain of the Enchanter, later named the Diana. He was an officer on the Apollo, and even after he left the Sea Org, he was captain of some ships out of Hawaii. He passed away maybe 2 years ago. Robert Von Young, we all knew him as Von Young.
Von Young, yeah.
And he worked in the Guardian's office, and he was married at that time to Toby Young, who was the LRH communicator, U.S.
Yeah.
That's before he married Stacy.
Yeah.
And he was more of a literary guy, and he worked with Hubbard on editing his books.
Yeah. Okay, next question. And he's an old guard critic. He's he spoke out before many other people did. There was Jerry Armstrong, and then following that, there was Robert Von Young and Stacy Young and others as well. But he was instrumental in exposing a lot of the stuff, the abuses in Scientology. Okay, next question. Apostate Alex. Hey, thank you for the super chat, Apostate Alex. We really appreciate it. Love and support you both. Janis, do you have any stories about those same families? Okay. So he asked it regularly, and he gave us a super chat too. So thanks very much, Alex. We'll go to the next one here. Swedish question, how do you keep track of all of the women who kept changing their surnames after several marriages?
When you grow up with them, you just know them.
Well, and the other thing too is because we all worked in different positions in different organizations. You would know people by one name when they were married to one person, and they go someplace else, and then they would get married to somebody else, and it would change. You just would remember it. Or they'd put out issues, like sometimes they'd write something and it would be sent out in that name, and so you just kind of got used to the different name changes, right, Janis?
Yeah.
Right. Thanks for the question. Okay, next one. Question, Lisa Pete. How were you able to keep these wonderful photos? Other people who escaped had their photos confiscated. Can't wait for book 3. Loving your channel.
Well, my photos were confiscated too.
Yeah, and mine too.
Yeah. So these photos I collected from my dad, my sister, my brother. When Doreen passed away, her brother gave all her photos to my brother, and I got them that way. I got them from other people who were on the ship. I actually just last week got a whole nother set of wedding photos of a wedding that happened in 1973 on the ship with Mary Sue in them. Hubbard wasn't there. And, so people know that I collect them and they send them my way.
That's great. And then Janis, also, just to update people, like you mentioned, Doreen passed away, right? She's no longer alive. There's some other people that are in there too that were in messages. David Rousseau is no longer alive. Who else? Who else is no longer with us?
That were messengers?
Yeah.
Barbara Dutton, she was not a well-known messenger, but she passed away. Doreen, David, Annie. From the original four, Claire, Terry, and myself are still alive.
Right.
And
Lois,
then
Lois is still alive. Dee Dee is still alive.
Yep. And Molly is still alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question here. Here we go. Sarah S. Question: how do you remember everyone's names after all these years?
I don't know. I'd look at a picture and the name comes to me. But then you saw me having trouble with Sammy's name.
Yeah. Then I remembered it. But no, I know the answer, Janis. Outback Naturals. That's what helps your memory, right? It's Janis's vitamin and supplement company.
Yeah. My vitamins, Outback Naturals plus Peter Gillham's Life Essentials. That's my dad's line of vitamins.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks for the question. That's a good one. Next, Denise Locker. If silly folks are hassling you about showing photos from the past, please don't worry about it. The rest of the world really appreciate it. I was never a Scientologist, but it helps. Thanks. We appreciate that, Denise. That's the way we feel too. And listen, 99.9% of the comments have all been positive. We've just gotten a few here and there, but we respond to them, but we're not making anybody wrong. Let's put it that way. Next question here. Escaping the Cultiverse A. Question: have you spoken or had any contact with Jerry Armstrong? I never knew Jerry. Go ahead, Janis.
Yes. Yeah, I've had, I'm on good terms with Jerry. If I run into something I need a question answered on, I'll email Jerry and he always answers me. And yeah.
Okay, great. All right, next question. Oh, thank you for the super chat, Justin Craig, aka LRH 2.0. We appreciate the super chat. Did COB, that's David Miscavige, use a corticosteroid inhaler? Might explain a lot. He has asthma, or he's had asthma all his life, and that's like an inhaler that somebody has when they have an attack. Do you know anything about that, Janis?
No, I just remember when he had that asthma attack and Paul saved his life.
Yeah.
And that's,
I literally, I worked for him personally for 6 years. There was an oxygen tank in his closet. I never once ever saw him use it. It was never necessary. He had a cough, but it seemed more like a smoker's cough that he would have every once in a while, because he smoked unfiltered Camels. Okay. And he was a chain smoker of those. And, but I never saw him. Like, I didn't even really know he had asthma until after I'd left the Sea Org. That's how little that it was a problem then. Okay, next question. Angus McTavish, question: do you remember the title of the original tech films Ron was involved in? And are there any copies still available? And how do you get them? Thanks, guys. Janis, reading your first book.
You mean like the case he couldn't crack?
Well, there was he did some of the, like, well, I can't even remember the number. The films were like TR1, TR2, TR whatever. There was a couple that he did, okay,
yeah, and
they were put out, but then Miscavige had them all reshot and redone, and so any of the old copies were confiscated and brought back because Miscavige thought it could be much better quality. And to be honest with you, there was one film that I liked that I thought was really good that he did, where it was filmed at the golf course at Gillham Hot Springs before you guys bought the property, and that I liked that film. But then there was some other ones that were really cheesy and really amateurish. So anyway, do you have anything else on that, Janis?
Um, I was in some of them.
Okay. All right. Thanks very much. And he's reading your first book. Everybody read her book. It's a good thing. You can order it on Amazon. It's in audio. We have links in our description and on our page where you can actually click on it and order them if you like. Okay. All right. Next question is Helena Violeta. I would love to collect all your Scientology in Portugal stories. I'll have to do a collection of all of them. Would love to know more about the lady with the same name as me that you picked up.
Well, actually, I talk about Portugal in both my books. There's all sorts of stories in there. And Helena, if you're in Portugal now, I will be in Lisbon in October the 21st to the 23rd. So if you want to meet with me and you're in the area, I'm open to meet up.
Okay, great. Janis, go through and see if there's any more questions. I just started.
That's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, no, I know you are. This is an announcement, Goldie. The next chatathon, Clearwater Chat does a chatathon, is going to be June 26th after the ordinary Monday Mayhem. Proceeds benefit Mike Rinder. Then I guess we'll all go to sleep with Denver Steve-O again. Okay. He's doing he does like a marathon, Clearwater Chad does on his YouTube channel. And he gets all of the different people to, cooperate, come on. Like I'm going to come on and do a half an hour on the 26th of June. And it's all to raise money for Mike Rinder and his treatment. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that to anybody. You can watch. It'll be on June 26th on Clearwater Chad's channel. Okay. Next question. Duchess of Chug question. I heard the boat is sitting empty in Aruba. So you think it's empty now or basically empty? Probably talking about the free winds because the Apollo is long gone, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, that would be about the free winds. I don't know of it being empty. I saw someone was recently down in the area and took photos of it. It docked, but I don't know of it being empty.
Yeah, and then during COVID, obviously they were shut down. They weren't doing anything. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for the question, Duchess of Chug. Next question here is Swedish Lena. Question, is this during the time when women would get promoted if they married, as it seems like there was a lot of weddings? Did the weddings get less fancy as people were getting remarried?
When a lot of women got promoted for getting married, that was in 1972. Hubbard had done that because there were a lot of people shacking up together. So to kind of calm that down, he said he would promote any woman who got a man to marry her. So those women all got promoted. And the weddings were kind of, how many friends did you have that you had get involved to help you get the wedding pulled off? That's what really it was about.
Well, and you didn't even mention the other motivation was if you got married, didn't you get your own berth or your own cabin?
You got to move out of the dormitories and live in a cabin if there was a cabin available. Sometimes there weren't. Someone goes on mission and they come back and there's a married couple in their cabin.
That's funny. Thank you for that question. Here's the next one here. Amanda Hager, wasn't it awkward, the Scientologists marrying and divorcing each other and then working with all their exes? I never saw that as being a problem. Did you, Janis?
They never made it a problem.
No, you would think it would be in some cases, but generally speaking, no, I never saw that happen, right?
No, they usually, they get over it.
Yeah, you just move on. It's just kind of like, that's kind of the way Scientologists think about things. They don't hold on to it. They just move on and they live in today and they look towards the future. They don't get stuck in the past. That's kind of the Scientology thing. But anyway, thanks for your question. That's a good one. All right, next one. We're getting down here to the last ones, people. Questions to both of you. Right after you left, did you grieve or want to go back? I didn't grieve. I missed my wife, obviously, and that took some time getting over that because I left her and she wouldn't come with me. There were times that I thought about not going back, but I had dreams and the nightmares, and that's continued for quite some time where I'm back working for Miscavige and I'm going like, what the heck am I doing here? I have a great life in Las Vegas. I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
How about you, Janis?
I did not grieve. I did not want to go back. I was happy to get out. I was looking forward to having my baby and raising my baby and just starting to enjoy life. We started going camping. We started having friends over and just creating a whole new thing. So, but as you bring up the dreams, Mark, I used to have those too. I'd wake up from them. It was like a nightmare. I was back on watch running messages for Hubbard. I was like, what the hell?
Yeah. Thank you for that question. That was a good one. All right. We got Irma Webb here. Hi, Irma. Question, come late. Did I miss John Osley? Where's John Osley?
No, you did not. I did not cover any pictures of John Osley. He was not a messenger. But when I cover the weddings, I do have pictures of when John got married on the ship. So I do have those.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Irma. Next question here. We've got Dustin's a Chuck question. What have you learned new from reading Barefaced Messiah again after so many years have gone by since the first read? I'll tell you, it's refreshed my memory on some things, but you know how when you read something over again, you pick up new details and stuff. And I picked up more details in regards to Hubbard and how he treated his family and how he treated his children before Mary Sue and his kids that were in the Scientology and the Sea Org. I also learned, a lot more about, the difficulties that countries had with him and trying to get rid of Scientology. And also I learned more about how, obviously, I knew about the black magic and the Jack Parsons and all that stuff, but just reading it again in a new unit of time, it's quite stunning. And the one thing I miss that's not covered in the book is he obviously did a tremendous amount of writing, and because he came up with these processes and that type of thing, but it's not covered anywhere really in the book. It's just all the stuff that was going on around him or stuff that he was saying in interviews and things like that. But there's no real, a lot of the stuff, I don't know how he came up with it. It really doesn't cover it that much in the book. So anyway, that was my experience so far. I'm almost done. All right, next question. Colonel Brock. Hi, Colonel Brock. Question. Were actual naval ranks used in the Sea Org back then? Warrant officer isn't Navy. Janis?
Well, if it's not Navy, then we had
midshipman, warrant officer, and then it went
ensign, lieutenant,
ensign, lieutenant JG, then lieutenant commander, and then commander was the highest. There were, right. To be a captain, you had to be an actual captain of a ship, except McScavage made himself a captain.
Right. But no, I believe Norman and Captain Bill were the only ones that ever made real captain.
Yeah. And then they would be called Captain Right Arm, because you could wear your lanyard on your right arm if you were a real captain, and that was sort of their rank. Janis, right. Let's cut off the questions here. I'm going to go ahead and answer the ones that are in here because we're right here at an hour and a half. Okay, so next one. Oh, thanks for the super chat, Melanie Johnson. I remember the original Dynesh commercial with the volcano as a kid and have always been fascinated with what it was. Thank you all for sharing your stories. Love them. Yeah, that commercial was done by our friend Jeff Hawkins, Jefferson Hawkins, and he's out and up in Portland, and he has written a book, and he's commented, and he's in here all the time. And those commercials sold a lot of books, and it got a lot of people involved in Scientology. But then, of course, when Miscavige got involved with it, he changed everything and made it difficult, and it just became a failure at that point. Thanks, Melanie. We really appreciate it. Next question here. Rita Pinheiro. Question, are you coming to Portugal, Lisboa?
Yes, I am. October 21st and 22nd, leaving on the 23rd.
And it's a cruise.
Yep, going on a cruise. I'm going on a cruise. From Lisbon, I'm going to the Canaries, old stomping grounds, going to Morocco, old stomping grounds, going to Spain, old stomping grounds.
Yeah. Thanks for that question, Rita. Next question here. We've got Justin Craig, a.k.a. LRH 2.0 question. It seems like a significant percentage of ex-CMO people from that era own horses. Am I imagining this? Janis, you would know.
I think you're imagining it. My sister owns horses. I think she's at 6 or 7 right now. I have a horse that I've had for 17 years. Doreen Doe had a horse. And I think that's it. Just a
and Terry.
It's a Gillham thing.
Right. Terry was into horses when she was in the Sea Organization.
Yeah.
And she had a horse when she was still in the Sea Org, right?
Yeah, and we'd go horse riding in the various different ports.
Yeah.
Oh,
Thanks,
and Annie had been into horses as well.
Yeah. Yeah, you tell some great stories about that in your book.
Yeah.
About horse riding. All right, next question. Thanks for the super chat. Borderline what? I'm Elron and I'm back. You wait till I get a hold of DM. Absolutely. We can't wait till you get a hold of him. You can shake him upside down by his little ankles. And anyway, thanks for the super chat. Okay, next question here. Diane Jean Vallecilio. Sorry about that. Question: Are all those shacking up? LOL. Did Hubbard assume marriage killed the shacking up vibe? Hi, Janis. Go ahead. Tell who that is.
This is my granddaughter. This is Elizabeth. Say hello.
Hello.
She and the dogs have all come in.
Yeah, we're nearing the end here. Let me go ahead and get through the. So all the shacking up. Did Hubbard assume marriage killed the shacking up vibe, Janis?
Yeah. Well, he figured it would. Yes, it would. That's what he felt.
Okay, and we got 2 more questions real quick here.
Okay.
Christine Smith question: was there ever a Scientology presence in Scotland?
Yes.
Yeah, there was Happy Org.
Yeah. Happy was the Edinburgh org, and then also the pubs. The publishing company was in Edinburgh, and the original AOSH, not original, there was an AOSH there before it moved over to Denmark.
Right. Okay, thank you so very much, Christine. Goldie, Mark Headley said his dream stopped almost entirely when he finished writing his book. Yeah, mine went away mostly, but I get them every once in a while. But you know,
yeah, I guess I need to finish book 3
and do your audio book too.
Yeah, and do my audio book too.
Oh, that's funny. All right, everybody. So listen, please subscribe to our channel. We need subscribers, okay? We're at 4,600 and change, right? We want to get over 5,000, and we're way behind Mark Headley and Aaron and everybody else, but we're doing good. But please, if you enjoy these, make sure you subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. As Janis said, pound that subscribe button, right, Janis?
That's right. Pound the subscribe button, push the like button, and also make sure you push the button for notifications.
That's right. That way you get an email telling you that the video is coming up. All right. And then also, if you have any other questions, just ask in the comment section. We'll be happy to answer them. Janis's book, Commodore's Messenger, book 1 and 2 are available on Amazon.com, and you can click on the links down there. And then lastly, Janis has her business, Outback Naturals. If you're interested in vitamin supplements, calm, magnesium, whatever the stuff is. Anyway, go to www.outbacknaturals.com. Janis, do you have anything else that you would like to say or share with anybody before we?
Just time to say goodbye.
Okay, everybody, say bye-bye, Elizabeth. Bye. Bye. Thank you for watching, everybody. We really appreciate
Bye.
it.
Hey,
Yeah.